Hello, Year 8, and welcome back. So in today's lesson, we're going to look at how did the Nazis use terror to control people. Now, before we begin, can you make sure you've got that worksheet open to go along? Can you please make sure you submit your worksheet? Don't just do amazing work and leave it there. Make sure you press submit in Google Classrooms to show your teacher. And the deadline for this work is Sunday, the 17th of May at 5 p.m. So, we've been looking before at how the Nazis used propaganda and censorship. In today's lesson, we're looking at how they used terror. Now, to change things around a bit, let's look at the task before we look at the information, because you might want pen and paper to help you as you go through this. I want you to imagine that your friend is trying to get you to join them in opposing the Nazis. Now, whilst you agree with them that the Nazis are evil, you need to write a letter to them explaining why resisting them is dangerous. You need to tell them why this is dangerous to oppose the Nazis. You need to tell them how they might be caught, and you need to explain what will happen if they are caught. Your letter needs to be convincing and it needs to be detailed. You might want pen and paper to help you as you go through this to make notes. Okay. What we must remember is that many people in Germany were happy with Hitler taking power. He was voted in. He doesn't take power by force. The people vote for him democratically to come into the party and to lead Germany. Now, there's reasons for this. Firstly, they might have believed his Nazi ideas about rebuilding the army, making Germany great again. The fact is he might have made life better for them. If you were starving at the time, you were part of the 6 million unemployed, then actually there's a chance Hitler did make life better for you. And also, some people were convinced by the propaganda and censorship. They believed the speeches, they believed the posters, they weren't told about the atrocities, the terrible things the Nazis were doing. But, just like any government, there was always going to be opposition. There was always going to be people who didn't believe the posters, they didn't believe the propaganda, they knew the information was missing, they were aware of the censorship. And so Hitler was going to need to use another step to control these people. Fear. Hitler was going to need to use terror tactics to control people. And Hitler made sure that he basically controlled every single aspect of Germany. And this is what made him a dictator. There was no resistance. Hitler made sure he had absolute control of the area. And by doing so, Germany was made into a police state. And this meant that the police force worked for Hitler. They had a huge amount of power. They basically would scare the population, they would control the population, they would check secretly on the population to make sure they were behaving the way that Hitler would want. And if they weren't, they could be arrested straight away. And you can imagine with that power, people soon became terrified of the police force. So the main police force in Germany was called the SS. This police force, like we said, was fiercely loyal to Hitler. They worked directly for Hitler. And they were led by Heinrich Himmler there on the screen. Now, the SS were known for their cruelty when they arrested people, and they also ran the concentration camps. We're going to come on to those later on. Now, one part of the SS was the Gestapo, and they were the secret police force. You didn't know who they were. They weren't wearing a uniform like the others. And the Gestapo would monitor the public. They would spy on people. They would follow up reports that the public might have given in about anti-Nazi behaviour. They would have people watching, reporting back, any conversations that were had which were negative towards Hitler. If you made a joke about the Nazi party, if you complained about the Nazi party, you could have a knock on the door in the night, Gestapo waiting for you to take you away to interrogate you. There was no freedom of expression at all. And just to prove this, the Gestapo were allowed to read people's letters before they were opened. Phone calls were listened into, so people had their wires bugged basically. People had to pull out their phone wires to make sure the Gestapo couldn't hear them. And if you were captured by the Gestapo, the interrogations were brutal. This isn't like a normal police situation today in Britain where, you've got the tape recorder and so on and people interrogate and that's it. It would be violent. The Gestapo could hit you, knock you out, make you unconscious, whip you with belts and so on. There are many reports of them doing this. And they could certainly kill you during the interrogations as well. There was no justice for people assumed to be guilty. There was no, we're going to get you a lawyer or anything like that. It was no, you're going to confess straight away. But it's not just the police force who are spying on Germany. It's actually members of the public as well. Members of the public were encouraged to report anti-Nazi behaviour, and they did. We have got lots and lots and lots of reports of this happening. Disloyalty being reported. So, for example, you might have your next door neighbour watching you from a window, noticing that you didn't salute and say Heil Hitler like you were meant to, and that could cause you to be arrested. If you overheard in a shop complaining about the Nazis, you might well be reported down at a local police station. Now, why did people do this? Well, again, there's a variety of reasons. Some people because they believed in the Nazis, they wanted to make sure that any opposition was removed. Other people possibly because they were scared, they wanted to seem loyal to the party. They were scared that actually they might be turned upon. And so by complaining about other people, it would make them seem more loyal as a result. But it's not just the police force, it's also members of the public who are keeping the law. You don't know who to trust. What impact does this have on the Germans? Well, again, you don't know who to trust. Anyone could be in the Gestapo, anyone could be reporting you to the SS. So you just remain silent. You cannot express yourself at all. If you didn't like the Nazis, you didn't speak out because you were worried about being caught. So you might just pretend to like the Nazis. You might do the salute even though you don't like the Nazi party and what it stands for because you know what the alternative is. That knock on the door in the middle of the night and the arrest being made. And so because people were so scared, this stopped large amounts of opposition to Hitler's Germany. There was still some opposition, but actually it could have been far worse. Hitler made people so scared that they just put up with him. What about if you were caught? Well, you could be found guilty without a trial straight away. And if you did have a trial, you were expected to be found guilty. Hitler again controlled everything. That means he controls the courts, he controls the judges. Judges were expected to do what the Nazis wanted and find these people guilty. And if the judges failed to do that, then they could be arrested, they could be tried as criminals as well. When you were found guilty, you could be shot, you could even be sent to a concentration camp, as shown in this diagram here, this drawing. Now, concentration camps are, some of you might be thinking about death camps here at this point. You might have some knowledge of the Holocaust before, where undesirables such as Jews, the people that the Nazis felt were undesirable, were taken and shot and burnt. Concentration camps are a first step towards this. Concentration camps are basically large outdoor prisons. We're not seeing a systematic killing yet. We're not seeing people turning up there and being burnt straight away. Dachau, near Munich, is the first concentration camp to be built, and it would later become a death camp in the 1940s. And the Nazis sent about 5,000 threats here. Basically, when the Nazis took power, there were so many threats to them, so many people they opposed, that they couldn't just put them all in prisons. And so these large outdoor concentration camps were built. And if you were sent to these outdoor camps, you were forced to do hard labour tasks like making ammunition for the German army, and the conditions were appalling in these camps. Let's remember, a lot of these were innocent people tortured and killed by guards. They would just take you, question you, and just beat you up until you died. Electric fences and guards meant there was no escape, although people in these camps would sometimes want to end their life and they would end up killing themselves as a result on the electric fence on purpose to escape this hell. If you were a prisoner here, you were not given enough food each day to survive, and your living conditions were basically, as you can see, in these sort of barracks, where you basically had a plank of wood almost to sleep on, you had a straw sack, and it was grotesque. You can imagine the illness and the disease that would have spread around these concentration camps. Now, the Nazis themselves wouldn't want to go into these barracks, these living quarters, so they would basically say to a criminal, the toughest criminal, they'd call him the capo, and they would say, you can have a bit more food, you are in charge, make sure these people behave. So the Nazis wouldn't often go into these barracks themselves, they would have the toughest criminals to do it as a result. Now, in the 1930s, some people did leave Dachau in the end. You had to sign a piece of paper to say that you would be loyal to the Nazi state. You were made aware of the fact that the Nazi state would be watching you, and you would have to do hard labour work outside of Dachau for the Nazi state. But many, many people died here as a result, innocent people that the Nazis took away. And this could be, I'll stress this again, there's so many reasons why it could be taken to somewhere like Dachau. You could have been a communist, so someone the Nazis opposed. You could have just done a joke about Hitler and someone's heard it, and you'd be sent here straight away, and many people wouldn't see their family as a result. And so people lived in fear. Some people were aware of these camps and these prisons being set up, and they didn't know where people were being taken to as a result. So, let's have a look at that task again. Hopefully you've made some notes as we've been going along there. Your friend is trying to get you to join them in opposing the Nazis. And whilst you agree with them that the Nazis are evil, you need to write a letter to them explaining why resisting them is dangerous. Tell them why it is dangerous, how they might be caught, what will happen if they are caught. And it needs to be convincing and it needs to be detailed. And once we're done with that, that's your only task for today, so I want it to be of a good standard, please, guys. Please make sure that work is submitted by Sunday the 17th of May at 5 p.m. And as always, any feedback, email me, gbrown@stopseyhighschool.co.uk. Please look after yourselves, take care, so get some fresh air where you can, and we will put some more work up for you next week. Thank you very much, Yuri. Take care. Bye-bye.